Okay. 3 Mormons. You just put out another video. If I can back that thing up a little bit. There we go. Much better. 3 Mormons. You just put out a video talking about how your prophets are humans. They can make mistakes. And I'm sure we all can agree here that yes, we are indeed humans. We are flawed. We make many mistakes. But then you go theologically right off the train tracks. You talk about prophets, minor and major, from the Old Testament. And these people are coming to Israel, giving messages from God to Israel. They spoke on behalf of God. Now, when God speaks to a prophet, he tells them what he wants to tell those people. That prophet gives what he tells to those people. Everything's good. You know, either they didn't do it and got blasted or taken out of the land. They killed the prophets. But what you're missing is if God didn't speak to the prophet and then that prophet dared to speak for the Lord and give prophecy and he was wrong, they killed him. Now, of course, we're in the New Testament time and we won't do that. We would just ignore them. Your prophets are not prophets. I do not see them getting messages from God to give to the church. We don't even have prophets like you think we do nowadays. I have the completed scriptures. It tells me what's going to happen. That's how I can tell you that in the twinkle of an eye, you may realize just how wrong you've been all these years by saying you represent Jesus when you don't represent Jesus. Your version of him is completely false and completely contradicted by the scriptures. And even your guest speaker, the comedian, said, well, he's half God. No, he's full God. The reason why the Jews wanted to stone him, the reason why they wanted to kill him, because he was claiming to be the God of the Old Testament, the Elohim, the I Am, the Jehovah. It's the same thing. They're not two separate beings. Jehovah is just a transliterated word from Yahweh, you know, the vowelless word. It is Elohim. That's why they wanted to kill him. There's not a whole plethora of gods running around, little gods. If you are a prophet of God, you have to give prophecy from God. If you're just calling yourself a prophet and you're not being told to speak to the people, well then you're just an idiot. You're going to get banged hard when that time comes. Joseph Smith was not a prophet. He gave prophecy. That prophecy utterly and completely failed. He was a pedophile. A polygamy. Everything about him was wrong. He said that there was all this different kind of horses, metal armor. You know, he was daring to speak for the past when he had no idea of what there was really there in the Americas. You cannot be a prophet of God unless you're giving prophecy from God. You're trying to equate this to, well, they can be wrong. Not if God's speaking to them and giving them prophecy to give to the people. They can't be wrong. They have to be 100% correct or they get killed, according to the old-time prophets, the Old Testament. Your claim of having modern-day apostles and prophets to help lead the church is asinine. You can't even prove where all this stuff happened. You don't have the most correct book. Yes, we're flawed. Yes, we're humans. Yes, we make mistakes. And another thing you do, you mix these dispensations up. Jesus Christ, prior to death, burial, resurrection, came only for the Jews. Matthew chapter 10, verses 5 to 7. Matthew chapter 15, verse 24. He brought the kingdom of heaven with him. That's his literal 1,000-year reign on this earth. The Jews said, nope, killed him. Death, burial, resurrection. Now the church is born. And in the Old Testament, the church was a mystery. No one knew what it was. Paul stated that, and the verses have stated that several times. No one knows what the church is. Well, they do now. If you're going to claim to be a prophet, Number one, you had better be giving prophecy. A prophet without giving prophecy is not a prophet. Number two, you had better be 100% correct if you're speaking on behalf of the Lord, as if receiving a message from Him to give to the people. Because if you're not, if you lived in the Old Testament days, they would kill you. They'd stone you to death. You're not a prophet. You don't have any prophets. Joseph Smith was no more a prophet than any common man out there. And what prophecy he did give, he was dead percent, 100% wrong. If he had done that in the Old Testament days, they would have killed him. You're following the teachings of a psychopathic liar, a pedophile. And now, what you'll notice is, each prophet that comes along can contradict the old prophet by declaring something new, or declaring something that was like a polygamy. They said, okay, now we don't do this. All the while, they're doing that. There is some very serious, egregious things you people are doing that offends God, the real God. And in the twinkle of an eye, you're gonna find out what He's gonna do about it. And we are this close. You have no prophets. You have no apostles. You have no leadership in the world at all. You're making fools of yourselves every single time you make a video. Because after the resurrection rapture, that you will see with your own eyes, everything you've just said is going to go right out the window. Because the real church has just been taken to heaven. And you have been left behind. Now, watch what happens. Rapture happens. Look and see who's left behind. Of course, atheists will be. You'll see all of Mormonism, all of Jehovah's Witnesses, all of Seventh-day Adventists, and Catholicism, the people that follow the tenets of Catholicism. Well, that's an awful lot of people claiming to be Christian that aren't. 2.2 billion Christians in the world. 1.2 billion automatically are Catholics. And then we have all the rest of the makeup, like the emergent church. You are not treading on a fine, dangerous line. You are in the fire right now. You are burning in hell right now. It's up to you to become a believer upon the Jesus Christ, to be indwelt with the Holy Spirit and born again, to step out of condemnation. Your fate is hell. Anyone who denies the biblical Jesus and accepts the version of your Jesus that you're talking about, spirit brother, the Lucifer, God the Mother, God the Father got together and got funky and created spirit children. God the Father literally took Mary, because that's what it means to be a literal son of God. You guys are in a world of hurt, and you're blind and don't see it. And I'm warning you. I am warning you. Step back and look what you're doing. Step back and look at the scriptures without the perverted lens of Mormonism, so that you can gain the truth from them. I've already had dealings with Mary Lejeune, not Mary, what is her name? April Lejeune. And she's talking about the two sticks, Joseph Smith is the Book of Mormon with, he's one stick and then the other stick is scriptures and how he's making them one. Well, if you read Ezekiel 37, that's talking about North and South Israel being gathered from the land, gathered from the world, brought back to the land of, that's Israel, and be born again as a nation. In 1948, that happened. It has absolutely nothing to do with Joseph Smith. And any person with any integrity or honesty, when they read those passages from Ezekiel 37, 16 through 22 or 23, and tries to tell me that's Joseph Smith, is a liar and a fraud. And in the twinkle of an eye, they're going to know it. Contextually, honestly, read that and tell me what it means. You don't have to, because it tells you itself what it means. The world is when the Bible talks about the world, it's like the world of Gentiles. When it talks about the land, it's talking about Israel. And I can guarantee you, New Jerusalem is not going to come down in Jacksonville, Missouri. I guarantee you that's not going to happen. Your prophets are false. You are a satanic, anti-Christian, anti-God cult, even though you don't believe it. But the one thing I can say that will get to you later on, and hopefully when that happens, those scales will fall from your skies and you'll become real believers. And that's this: in the twinkle of an eye. Because once the rapture happens, you can't deny it. You just have to be willing to say, okay, if some form of alien shows up saying, okay, we took them to be re-educated somewhere and we're going to enlighten you, bring you in the golden age. You've been told before. See, the Bible prophesied this is going to happen. You've been told. I'm not a prophet. I just read and study the scriptures in a contextual manner. And it's without the lens of Mormonism. And the twinkle of an eye.